When we think about Nepal, we imagine tall Himalayan mountains, magnificent monasteries and temples, and being the birthplace of Siddhartha Gautama, also known as the Buddha. In the 5th century BC, he was a spiritual teacher and the founder of Buddhism, one of the oldest and most influential religions in history. Or is it really a religion? Some scholars don't recognize Buddhism as a religion, but a philosophy and a spiritual way of life. Anyway, you can share with us your opinion in the comments if Buddhism is a religion or not. So Nepal looks like a nice country in a quiet place of this world. But if you look at the map, you will see that Nepal is kind of sandwiched between two powerful countries with huge population. Both countries are the most populated in the world with over 1.5 billion. You have to compare that with tiny Nepal with a population of 20 million. If we look at the map again, we can see obviously that Nepal has no seaport. So how on earth can they trade with the rest of the world? Well, Nepal as a landlocked country and other landlocked countries, they have to rely on a port in the neighbor country. For example, Ethiopia is dependent on Djibouti. The countries of Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, and South Sudan all rely on the port of Mombasa in Kenya. And we have many other examples in the rest of Africa and the European continent. In the case of Nepal, the country is dependent on the port of Kolkata in India. The distance between Kathmandu, the capital of Nepal, and the city of Kolkata in India is 545 miles or 875 kilometers. And that's one of the main reasons that landlocked countries in general are less developed than countries with direct access to the open sea. Landlocked countries have a problem of high transport costs, especially with the rise in energy prices and complicated cross-border procedures, which make it more difficult to export and import products and create irregularity of delivery time. But before talking about the current situation and geopolitics surrounding Nepal, we have to make a look at the history of the country. Because of its geographic position in the heart of the Himalayas, the Nepalese civilization flourished in what is called the Valley of Kathmandu around the 6th century BC, where the present city of Kathmandu is located, and Buddha was born there. For the coming centuries, several dynasties took the role, but it wasn't until the 12th century with the reign of the Malla kings that Nepal took the dimensions of a modern state. In the 18th century, the country was unified by the king Prithvi Narayana Shah, but after a period of instability and interventions from the British East India Company caused the Anglo-Nepali War in 1815. The war ended in a treaty in which Nepal ceded recently captured land, but after the Nepalese helped the British forces with the Indian Rebellion of 1857, the United Kingdom and Nepal had friendly relations. And in 1923, they signed an agreement in which the UK recognized Nepal as an independent nation that had the right to conduct its foreign policy, and the country gained admission to the United Nations in 1955. To remain independent, Nepal had a policy of keeping balance between the two giant neighbors, China and India, but also with the United States. But these geographic and demographic realities made India to be the biggest partner of Nepal with over 70% of its external trade. As we said before, Nepal is a landlocked country. It's not the perfect situation. It's the biggest problem the country is facing and the main reason why Nepal is one of the least developed countries in Asia, with a GDP per capita based on purchasing power parity of only $4,260. That's even lower than India and Bangladesh with $7,000 and $6,000 per capita. That's why the country has been provided with economic assistance from the United States, China, and India. This economic assistance is influenced by Nepal's strategic position. Despite the long history and strong tie between India and Nepal, the two countries had trust problems in the last years. mainly because India intervenes in Nepal's local politics and actually used what Nepal feared the most, an economic blockade. India knows that the weakness of Nepal is its geographic position, but apparently it backfired on India, and Nepal government started talking about the disputed land between the two countries, which are controlled by India, like the Kalapani region, and things got complicated from there. The other giant neighbor in the other side of the Himalayas is paying more attention to Nepal. Now China is the biggest foreign investor in Nepal. In the year 2020 alone, the foreign direct investment amounted for over $180 million, and the two countries signed a transit transport agreement for third country trade. But not only China that is paying more attention to Nepal. The United States also invested hundreds of millions of dollars in the country's infrastructure, and both China and the United States don't really like the increase of the other's presence in Nepal because it might influence the local politics of a country with this strategic position. Now, the situation of Nepal is very complicated, but they can actually turn it into massive benefits, but only if they kept a balanced relation with India, China, and the United States. And they can only do that if Nepal itself invested in its capabilities. As a landlocked country, they have no choice but to focus on sectors that can be able to compensate from all the downside of the country, like relying on India or China to export and import. We already have examples of successful mountainous landlocked countries like Switzerland. The situation of both countries and circumstances are different, but the economics have the same principles. What Switzerland did is to invest in high technology products with focus on products that work for the Swiss position, like luxury watches and the pharmaceutical industry, but also the service sector like banking and tourism. The Swiss success story is not a coincidence. The country worked hard for centuries to reach the point where they are, one of the richest countries in the world with limited natural resources, unlike countries like Norway, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates. And Switzerland also had the same geographic problems like Nepal. Switzerland was sandwiched between European superpowers that weren't the friendliest to each other for a really long time. Switzerland was able to do that because they invested in education. They have some of the world's best universities where one of the greatest scientists studied, Albert Einstein. But if we look at the state of education in Nepal, we can see that it's not that good. The adult literacy rate is just 68%, which make it lower than Nepal's neighbors like India and Bangladesh. But the worst is youth literacy rate. It's only 85%, which means that Nepal is not investing enough in its future generation. But as we said before, the country's economic situation looks bad in every metric, but they have the capability to change that. Nepal is already famous for being the rooftop of the world, with the Himalayas mountains, Mount Everest, and being the birthplace of Buddhism. Nepal can build on all that and grow its tourism industry to bring more foreign investments. But most importantly, the country can use its geographic positions and the increased attention from global superpowers like the United States, China, and India to keep a balanced situation and protect its independence. In the end, we have to ask, can Nepal really achieve that? You can share with us your opinion in the comments. You've been watching Atlantic State. If you liked this video, please click like and subscribe. Thank you for watching.